next up for Kentucky is a rematch with Georgia. The Cats now have some momentum heading into that home game against a Bulldog squad that will be seeking to avenge a loss from earlier this month. In that game, Kentucky went on the road and beat Georgia behind a big second half after trailing by 6 at halftime. Tyrese Maxey, Nick Richards, Emmanuel Quickley, Ashton Hagans, they all had strong games that night. Georgia's star freshman Anthony Edwards finished with 23, but Kentucky was able to keep the rest of the team in check. And Josh, that's probably the recipe for success. I don't think that you're going to completely limit him because he may be the best college player in the country.
But he's a scorer, and I'm honestly he can get 25 or 30, but just make him do it on 25 shots. Just make him inefficient, and you'll probably be fine because I think Hammond's down low is a pretty decent offensive player for them. But aside from Edwards, it's hard to see the 35-point game out of anybody. Of course, I say that somebody's going to hit 10 threes, and I'll have to eat my words. But make him inefficient, and if everybody else brings it, which aside from the half at South Carolina they have, we'll be okay.
And I gotta say, I love how Emmanuel Quickley's playing. He's been
10
so
rebounds.
I know.
He's not big, guys. 10 rebounds.
Yeah, he's been great. All right, let's turn to politics. Leading Democrats are again calling out Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell ahead of tomorrow's start of the presidential impeachment trial. On NBC's Meet the Press yesterday, Senator Dick Durbin said the Senate Majority Leader had yet to share a memo about the rules for the trial of Donald Trump. Durbin, who is the Senate Minority Whip, said he didn't know what motions might be called because it's unclear what the McConnell memo or resolution includes.
A fair trial, everyone understands, involves evidence. Evidence would be documents and witnesses. We know the president has refused to provide documentation beyond the July 25th telephone memo, and he's refused to provide basic witnesses who actually heard what happened on that conversation and saw what happened afterwards. So at this point, the Senate is on trial. And I hope at the end of the day, enough Republican senators will understand history will find you. Make certain that you make a decision that you can live with in terms of our Constitution and your own professional career.
Mitch McConnell did not have an immediate comment following Durbin's comments yesterday. Josh, this may all well be an exercise in futility from start to finish, which it probably is. But I'd like to see them at least pretend.
Yeah, when I talked to Senator Rand Paul the other day and brought that up, are people, the American public, are we going to be able to walk away from this feeling like the process actually ran its course in a legitimate way? And he, decried partisanship, on the Democrat side. But I think it goes both ways here. Mitch McConnell is obviously not looking to do anybody any favors or make this, make anybody feel good about the process.
I mean, he was sworn in as an impartial juror after saying, I will not be an impartial juror.
He wants to win, and we've talked about how he's good at that. That's what he wants.
All right. In Frankfurt, civil rights advocates are criticizing a bill that would give police new powers to stop people on the street and demand that they identify themselves and explain their actions. Critics of Senate Bill 89 call it unconstitutional and something that would probably be used for racial profiling. The legislation calls for allowing police to follow up with someone who draws their suspicion in a public place and to demand that person's identification and an explanation of what they're doing, quote, to the satisfaction of the officer. A Western Kentucky Republican says he was encouraged to sponsor the bill by law enforcement officials after a number of incidents showed the need for it. Josh, I am highly against this because I definitely believe that this, we have an unconscious bias, and this is going to lead to racial profiling. It just will.
Right. We've seen stop and frisk policies, right, which sort of are adjacent to this kind of thing. It feels like totalitarianism is like a big word and a scary word, but that's the sort of practices that are put in place, right? Show us your papers. What are you doing here? And
why are you here?
Yeah, I'm not saying being a police officer is an incredibly difficult, challenging job for a lot of reasons, but this does, I think, cross the people who are calling it unconstitutional. I get where they're coming from, and I feel like I agree with that.
And the example that they set forth was someone who was lurking around an apartment complex, and several people called the police on him. Well, okay, then you've been called. Now I feel like you can go and ask that person because
other people
there have been
noted,
complaints.
For sure.
But yeah, so I don't like this at all. All right, now in Hay, Kentucky, in case you missed it, a review of recent headlines. Members of the former State Board of Education are moving forward with their lawsuit over the group's recent dismissal, this time taking up the issue in federal court. The board was dismissed shortly after Governor Beshear took office, and they fought the decision in court. Meanwhile, the newly appointed board has created a team that will evaluate proposals from executive search firms vying to help the board find Kentucky's next education commissioner. And on this Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, thousands of people braved the bitter cold to march through downtown Lexington to honor and celebrate the life and legacy of the slain civil rights leader. Governor Beshear also spoke at this morning's Unity Breakfast.
I hope when you look at this administration, the Beshear administration, you see diversity in practice. Because for the first time in the history of Kentucky, the top 2 appointed positions in the Commonwealth of Kentucky are both held by African American individuals.
Up next on Hey Kentucky, more from my recent conversation with ex-UK linebacker Cash Daniel. The pride of Paintsville dives into some deeper issues from his time in Big Blue. Stay with us.